Hello everyone, and welcome to the series that haven't appeared on the channel for quite some time, how the livery is made. A few days ago, the WRT GT racing team announced their livery and showed their livery for the new BMW M4 for their GT World Championship season and also Bathurst 12 hours. So I decided to recreate this livery on Gran Turismo 7. So today we're going to take a look at the process of recreating this livery, and I'm going to talk about the challenges that I had to face. If you just want to see the end result, just skip to the timestamp that you see on the screen. The download link to this livery you're going to find in the description. And now, let's get into it. One of the reasons why I decided to recreate this livery is because I really like the color combination of dark blue and vibrant yellow. So the first step is obviously making these colors match the real livery in Gran Turismo 7, which is often quite tricky because the colors don't seem to look the same way as they do in real life. But I think here I managed to match them pretty well. It didn't take that long to find the correct blue and then find the correct vibrant yellow. And the main challenge in recreating this livery was the fact that the M4 and the M6 are very different in their shapes. It's still a BMW, but M4 is quite boxy. There are a lot more sharp edges, sharp corners to the car, when M6, the one that I'm trying to adapt this livery for, is a lot more rounded. The wheel arches, the bumpers, everything is a lot more round. There's not a lot of sharp edges, which made recreating this livery particularly difficult because the whole livery consists of sharp edges, and it was a challenge to make it work on such a rounded car. So this bit, the first bit on the side, wasn't very difficult because it's just a flat surface. The roundiness of the car doesn't really come into the play yet. It is going to be a lot more difficult to make this livery work when we get to the hood part, to the bumpers, especially the front bumper. The whole front end of the car was very difficult to work with, to try and make this livery work for this particular shape of the car. So I allowed myself to take a few liberties when it comes to recreating this livery. It's not a one-to-one replication. Like 90% of the livery is the same. There are a few things that I had to add or change in order to make this livery look nice, because otherwise it would just look weird. I'm just making sure that all of the parts of the livery, especially inside the wheel arches, look nice, so it doesn't matter from what angle you look at it, it's still a well complete livery. This part on the bottom here I ended up changing later because I didn't like the fact that I used a rounded shape for such a sharp livery. So later on I changed this bit to a sharp corner rather than those rounded edges to those lines. Here I'm starting to work on this line that goes above the windows, and I thought it would be quite difficult to recreate it, but it ended up being quite simple. It's just a matter of positioning your camera well, so the lines go in a particular way, and you only have to use one line or a circle, which was quite simple. And then these bits at the end, I just took some time to make sure that they look exactly how I want them to look. Now we get to the actually properly difficult part, which is working with the front end of the car. So this line that goes above the window had to be connected with the lines on the side, which wasn't that difficult. It looked a little bit weird at first, but then when we complete the whole livery, it makes sense. It looks all right. And now we get to the most difficult part. So here, there's the white line that goes from the hood vents across the headlight, and they're supposed to go into the wheel arch on the original livery. However, the issue is that the positioning of the vents, headlights, and especially how round the wheel arches are and the whole car is, it just didn't work on this car. I tried, I couldn't make it work, otherwise it would look weird, it would make the livery not look like the one I'm trying to recreate. So after trying a few things, I've settled for just, letting these lines run all the way down, and then we're just gonna cut them off at the bottom, even though on the original livery they were supposed to go into the wheel arch without being cut off at the bottom. Now I'm just lining up the line that goes from the top of the car, above the windows, down to the wheel arch, and then completing those lines from the hood on the front bumper. And then actually the whole background to these part here is actually black. At first I thought it was blue as well, but there is a black background to it, which I think works quite well. It adds a nice additional color, tertiary color, to this livery, apart from white, of course, that's not really noticeable, but gives it a nice accent on this livery. Then we line up the curving line on the hood of the car. And complete the line that goes on the wheel arch on this edge of it to make the wheels a little bit more distinct, because on the original livery on the M4, the wheels are a lot more distinct, when here they kind of hide a little bit in the wheel arch. So I decided to create this black outline around the wheels. And now this is where I've taken quite a few liberties with the livery. So the issue is, for me, is that the front end of the car started to look very cluttered with all of the elements that we had there. And just because of how the shape of the car is, the front end, especially the headlights, aren't very pronounced. They look lost. They look too small on the livery that has a lot of elements on the front end. So I've decided to add the black outline on the front of the car, around the main intake on the front, and as well as the headlight covers that's supposed to be endurance lights, but that's just covered on this model of the car. So at first I'm working with white because I realized that it was too difficult to work straight away with the black color because you couldn't see it on the dark blue. So it was easier to create it in white and then just change the elements to black. And now I'm just going to complete the outline around the headlights, around the endurance lights covers. And then later on, I will also add an outline around the headlights to make the headlights more pronounced, make them a lot more noticeable on the car, so it doesn't look like the front end of the car is just a huge splat of different colors and shapes. That was quite a difficult part, quite a tedious part, because there's a lot of angles on different surfaces, but in the end, I made it work, and I think it looks pretty good. You're gonna see at the end that it makes the front end of the car a lot more pronounced than it would have been without those black outlines. Now I'm just completing the small bits on the hood of the car. Those lines there weren't really working with the shape of the vents on the car. They're a lot more thin and long on the M6 compared to M4, so I had to change those lines a little bit, make them a little bit thicker, so they would make sense on this car as well. And here, as I said, I'm changing these lines at the bottom of the side, on the side of the car, to the shapes with the sharp corners, because I think it looks a lot better, because the whole livery uses sharp edges, sharp corners. It was just not fitting well that these used rounded shapes. Now to the roof of the car. That wasn't too difficult. There were just a few simple lines to take care of. As well as the back of the car. And here you can see I've decided to change those bits on the rear bumper a little bit, because when I made them from the side, they were a bit too long. You can see them if you look at the rear of the car, which I didn't like. It's just a matter of positioning your car and a matter of perspective of how you put those lines there. So I decided to cover the original ones and just recreate them once again. I did end up changing them a little bit later on because the bottom part of the rear bumper was covered in black, so I could take a little bit more, so I could make them a little bit more pronounced from the side. So at the end, those lines look good from the side and from the rear. And now this small black bit, which takes up quite a bit of the car on the original livery, I couldn't do it here because of the rear wheel arches. They're a lot more round. They're quite flat on the M4, which makes sense for this livery, but here I had to make this black bit a lot smaller, and the sponsor that's gonna go there is gonna be a lot smaller, just because otherwise it looks very weird from certain angles when you look at the car. And now these vents, it was bothering me the whole time I was recreating this livery, how the lines look inside of these vents. So I decided to cover them up as if the lines just don't go inside of it. I think now it looks a lot more clean, a lot more tidy. And now, as I mentioned before, I'm adding the outline around the headlights, which doesn't seem to make that big of a difference right now. It's not that noticeable in the livery editor, but then when I was looking at the car from the outside on the replays, it makes the livery look a lot better, a lot more complete, a lot more tidy, because otherwise the front lights just get lost on this car with this livery, and they're actually quite a big part of the car. So I'm glad that I decided to do it. It is one of the few liberties that I've taken with this livery, but I think it's a good change. And now the rear wing, there are a few things that I had to work around because I wanted to keep it carbon and not just black, so I had to work a little bit with the lines on the end plate to make that yellow line look nice. And then the side mirrors, on the original livery there is a line on the bottom part of the wing mirror, but it just doesn't work on this livery because of just wonky modeling. It just doesn't look good at all. Unfortunately, there are no Pirellis in this game anymore, so I had to resort to having no tire stickers at all, because on the original photos of this livery, there are no tire stickers on the tires. And now we get to placing the sponsors, which is, for me personally, the most fun part of the livery, because this is where the whole livery just comes together. So first we position the number 46 on the car, that I'm not a huge fan of, just because I like when the cars use the same number board and the same numbers, but I'm guessing it's just a showcase livery, so it's perfectly fine. And then there are a few sponsors that I had to replace because either I couldn't find them or I couldn't see them on the pictures that were posted of this car. There are only a few, so from those angles I couldn't see certain sponsors, but that's only a few, and I replaced them with the similar looking sponsors. There are small ones, so it's not ruining the whole look of the livery. Now we're just positioning the small sponsors on the side of the car. This is one of the sponsors that I had to replace on the side there. And now moving on to the front of the car. Not a huge fan of this monster logo, so I personally wouldn't put it in a car. I just don't think it looks nice, but again, it is on the livery, so I put it there, and then just the remaining bits on the rear wing, on the mirrors. This is something that I had to work a little bit with because these sponsors, Champion Lubricants and Pirelli, they are in line on the original livery. Unfortunately, on this car, there's just not enough space between the wheel arch and the headlights cover. I had to improvise a little bit. I ended up just placing them on top of each other, which I don't think looks that bad. And then there are no canards on the front on the original livery, on the M4, sorry. So I had to try and position those sponsors on the M6 in a way that they are also visible, because M6 does have the canards on the front. Then for a long time I couldn't decide whether I want this WRT logo to be inside of the car or outside on the front splitter. I ended up placing it on the outside. I think it looks a little bit better. And then just a few small bits remaining of this livery, of course the Fanatec banner. And that is it, the livery is complete. I really enjoyed the challenge of adapting a livery for the BMW M4 to the BMW M6. I wasn't expecting it to be that much of a challenge, but it turned out that these cars are very different in terms of their shape. There are a few things where I had to improvise a little bit, take a few compromises, but in the end I think it turned out really well. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for watching. The download link again you can find in the description. Hopefully you have a good day, and I'll see you next time.